I mean, those two guys were probably the funnest guys I've ever evaluated watching Florida State's defense. It made me think, shit, they should have got into the playoff,
Right.
watching with, no matter who their quarterback was, when you watch those two play, because how hard they play, how much they set the tone. And that's exactly what we wanted, knowing when we lost Aaron Donald, we thought Jared Verse could be that, Draymond Green type guy where, he's talking shit. He's got an attitude. He's going to be right on that line where, did he cross that line and get locked into one-on-one battles a couple of times last year? Yeah. And we had to kind of reel him back in and we kind of knew that. And we love that about him, where Fiske is going to be quieter. He's going to be more steady. But when the ball snapped, those guys are going balls to the wall. We love their style of play, and they're great examples for our defense.
Welcome to the Greenlight Podcast presented by BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code Greenlight, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code Greenlight. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. If that bet loses, you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Just make sure you use bonus code Greenlight when you sign up. All right, this is great. We got another D coordinator on the show, and his group did a great job last year. Enjoyed watching that defensive line especially, but the whole group was awesome. Chris Shula from the Los Angeles Rams joins us now. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, man, you know what? It's great having you on. One thing we definitely have in common, besides like having worked for the Rams, is you grew up in a football family. I grew up in a football family. I can imagine you got to go to a bunch of practices and games growing up. What were the memories like of going to Bengals games or whatever you went?
Yeah, it was the Bengals. It was I was going in. My favorite memories was and for training camp, they did training camp at Wilmington College.
Yeah.
And I would go stay in the dorms with my dad. And I would have a room. I had a room on like the floor with the players for some reason. Like I would be on like the third floor. And I remember the staff room. He had like a little suite in the dorms, and they would meet as a, full staff or like an offensive staff, be like watching film. I remember like going in there at 8 or 9 at night to like, he had a big fridge, so I would always grab snacks or whatever out of the fridge with the coaches meeting in there. And I remember like going to the walkthroughs in the morning. I was the ball boy, and in 7-on-7, I was really good friends with the long snapper. And then I actually was the DC at John Carroll, and we played at Wilmington College. And I used to like during the breaks when they would all go nap, I would just like walk around the campus, go in the basketball gym. And I did that, before the game. And it kind of brought back all the memories.
Well, you knew the lay of the land out there, so that's great. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I can remember going to Oxnard when I was a kid when my dad they had training camp there. And I don't know if you remember this at all, but like the snacks, you mentioned the snacks were great. My favorite memory was the canned Gatorade. It was the coldest.
No doubt. You know what? Yeah. We have it here.
You have canned Gatorade?
We have canned Gatorade in our cafeteria. I said that to the players all the time. I said, that reminds me of me growing up when I would go to the Bengals stuff. I swear to God.
Dude, I swear, I used to go to dad's practices and people are always like, what do you remember? Do you remember like Bo Jackson? Do you remember like, yada, yada? I'm like, no, I remember the damn lemon lime fresh out of the fridge in an aluminum can. You got to let me know where y'all get those because we need to get some.
You got to ask Reggie. I have no clue. Or Sebastian, our nutritionist. No clue. I just see him in there. It reminds me of it. But yeah, it tastes way better out of the can.
I mean, you were a player. I actually was reading your bio. You were a hell of a player, man. But like, was this always football was going to be what it was? Or do you feel like you were given the room to decide what you wanted to do? Like for me growing up, it was like, hey, do whatever you want to do. But if you do this is what it's going to be like. And you got to work your ass off. Like what was the roadmap for you like?
Yeah, it was always what I wanted to do. And I was always focused, Chris, on just being the best player I could be. I think pretty early on in college or probably even in high school, I knew I wasn't going to be playing in the NFL or anything, but I still, wanted to play as long as I could. And I was completely focused on that. And then I actually went to University of Oklahoma, got my master's in athletic administration to be like an athletic director. So the AD at Oklahoma went to my high school. So we got connected and he had me go out and do this program. And I knew the first game day I was walking around in a suit, up in the suite level, meeting with the donors and stuff. I'm like, this is not me. So I finished the program, and then I was GAing at Ball State by the next summer.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I mean, just probably so many cool stories from growing up and everything. But like the one I wanted to ask you about was the guy I wanted to ask you about was a guy I've gotten to know pretty well, Jimmy Johnson. I know you were too young probably when your dad was working for Jimmy, but does
Yeah,
he tell stories about what a hard ass he was?
he did. He has told me a few. He's told me a few. I know there was one time. By the way, Jimmy Johnson, legend. I read his
Legend.
book. I love him. I mean, great, unbelievable coach.
Incredible
But
guy.
there was one time he had said it was something where he gave him the game plan and whatever Jimmy Johnson went through, and he said cut out half of it. And I said, well, how? And he said, well, you run it one time to each side, that's double the plays, so cut out half. So I had to take half the plays out. Yeah, but you definitely hear some stories, and I've heard a lot of stories, obviously not from my dad,
I love Jimmy.
about
I
him
love
and what a
Jimmy.
hard ass he was.
How much does it help you, like having you played obviously, and you're a young coach? I mean, there's a lot of young D coordinators now. I don't even think you're the youngest one. You got Zach Orr and Rallis and all these guys that are like, and McVay's young, but I feel like you've got a lot of experience, like going through your bio, reading the different positions you've coached, the different experiences that you've had on staff, just the Rams alone. Take me through the different positions that you've made contact with along the way, and like maybe what it taught you, preparing you to be the person responsible for all 11.
Yeah, no doubt. No, as a player, I was a linebacker, so that's always kind of been my home base and kind of where you feel most comfortable at. But I've just been lucky to coach at every single level, where you kind of figure out the problems kind of throughout. And I think it just has naturally happened throughout my coaching career. It's kind of one of those things where you just kind of get lucky and you kind of have the ability to move around. And my first year in the NFL, I was the QC with the Chargers, and every position coach had an assistant position coach, and the defensive line was the only one that didn't. Yeah. And I had never been in a D-line room, never done anything with pass rush, nothing, knew nothing about it. And I was able to just kind of go be a fly on the wall in that room, help out in indie drills. And then, we hired Giff Smith as our D-line coach, who's our D-line coach now, and one of our, obviously one of my closest friends, closest mentors in coaching. And, that kind of started it. And then the ability when you come back to now you come up to LA with Sean, you're working as assistant linebackers under Joe Barry, and he gives you a lot of autonomy to kind of run your own drills, do stuff. And then you kind of break off. You have outside backers, which is essentially like coaching an edge player, like a D lineman. Yeah. Then we get a Raheem Morrison, and you move to inside backers, so you start to kind of feel that level, and you're like, okay, I'm at home. This is my comfort level. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Then next thing you know, the next year you move back to DBs, and you got Jalen Ramsey in the room. You got some veteran guys in there where you got to be on your stuff. And it's always fun. Every single position is just fun to learn and really to work through the problems and understanding what those coaches go through, and the hardest things for those guys, solving the problems with the players.
Was there anything eye-opening for you coaching the secondary? Because I can, it's so funny. I played a million snaps of football, but I never seen it through a linebacker's eyes. I've never stood 5 feet back there and, and played the ball or blocks the way the backers did, and probably vice versa for a backer, seeing it from the vantage point of a safety or something like that. What do you think the biggest eye-opening experience was when it came to coaching the secondary?
How fluid you have to be. Like those guys are the ones that, like, when the ball goes up in the air and it's on Sports Center, those guys are the ones that are giving up, that people see giving up touchdowns and things like that. And there's a lot of problems to work through in the back end. But the benefit that you have is you have space and time, and you have the ability to communicate. Where it's interesting is there's a lot of plays, whether you're inbound draft guys or you're, just reviewing film, there's a lot of plays where, it doesn't really matter who's out there in the back end. It doesn't get, it's a run play and it doesn't get through the D line. But those plays that, where they're attacking down the field and they're attacking your core coverages and you're isolated down the field, it's a different feeling back there. And then, kind of vice versa from the D line perspective is you can be judged on every single play. It's a one-on-one pass rush, or you're taking on a certain run block, and it's man on man every single play. And, so that's kind of the different feel between the positions.
Do you like, you had a young defensive line. I can't wait to dig in on that group because I enjoy watching them so much, and Gift did such a great job. But do you feel like, or is it kind of your MO to say, hey, we want you guys penetrating and resetting the line of scrimmage, and the guys behind you will make you right? Or are you more, hey, we got to play this by the book, and we have to have leverage, and we have to show color in the right gap? Or is it a mixture of the two? And how do you teach a young player when to take those chances?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. So, like, we want to get off the ball and we want to reset the line of scrimmage, but at the same time, you don't just want to be running up the field completely aimlessly and creating vertical seams within the defense. So for us, I always talk about it to the whole defense is bad run defense is when everybody plays one gap. So it's like you want to get off the ball and your primary gap. Like the ball's not getting through my gap, but we also talk about playing a gap and a half. If everybody plays one gap, that's exactly what the offense wants, and the ball is going to get untouched to a DB, and that's not what we want. We want it muddy. We want it, we want it like like I like to show pictures of like the offense wants like a freeway, and you're just kind of on cruise control driving, and it's just easy. Where we want like LA traffic when I used to drive to Encino at 5:00 at night, and it's just jam packed and everything's in there muddy and so the answer is, it's you understand your leverage of how you take on a block. And that's how I coach linebackers too. It's like, yeah, you have a gap, you have a primary gap you're responsible for. But I also understand when a block comes to me, I have to keep a certain leverage on the ball all the time. And if I'm not sure, I know what shoulder and where my eyes are when I hit this block.
As somebody who's been a pass rush coordinator, and I guess I don't even know what pass rush coordinator does, honestly. You guys probably told me what the fuck to do back in the day. I don't even know.
I think that's just a title they kind of threw. I think they had to take in order to get Aubrey back to give, we were making him pass game coordinator. And it was like, all right, what the hell do we do with Shula? I was like, yeah.
But now you're a D coordinator. You are coordinating the pass rush. You're coordinating everything. So my question was, and I played on defensive lines where like I played for Mike Waffle in St. Louis, who
he was here year before we got here.
Awesome, absolute psychopath, like all D-line coaches. No, he's like a daycare operator as well, because if you've been in a D-line room, you know what that's about.
No,
but like when it comes to game day, you want to let us pin our ears back and rush, but there are going to be some times where you're calling games and stunts, and there's probably situations in the game where these are preset, and there's probably situations where it's like, guys, go get it, and I trust you to call games on the fly and play off each other. When you have a young group like that, does it help that Jared and Braden played together in college and just have a feel for each other, or does it help that they're all young? And did you give them that freedom, or are you more like, hey, by the book, this is when we're going to call this game?
No, it definitely helps that they play together, and really seeing that unit grow when you add, obviously Verse and Fiske, and then you had Kobe and BY, and then even, Hoyt, who did an awesome job for us last year. Everybody runs a TE stunt. Everybody runs an ET stunt. And I think the way Byron Young is going to do it is going to be a lot different than the way Jared Verse is going to do it. The way Fiske is going to penetrate on a certain game is going to be different than, for instance, Bobby Brown last year, or somebody else that doesn't necessarily have the great get off. So guys understanding, who you're working with is always key. And then we try to sell it on them is we want to set up, matchups and get guys isolated 1-on-1. We want to get guys isolated or it could be 2-on-2 or 3-on-3. You want to get guys on isolations and, put their linemen on islands and have our guys go hunt. And then how many times can you give, because it's just a fine line, kind of similar to what you were saying in the run game, where you want to give your best rushers that freedom to go get the QB, and you don't want to have to rip their ass for being past the QB or anything, where you give them two-way goes and understanding when they can take those opportunities. And I think when you sell them, hey, these are your ops, and you kind of dial it in, they understand when they do have to play discipline. And all right, maybe here I have to protect high and low and not let the quarterback out of the pocket.
And now they're probably it was so funny because I remember when AD retired, and I couldn't believe he retired. Could you believe he was done when he was done? Or I don't know, as a sidebar, because I asked Sean this and he was like, yeah, he told me I'm full, and I believed him and all that. But like, he was just so good right up to the end. And I think he could play another 9.
He definitely could. And he just doesn't want to, I think for him, he just never wanted to, for lack of a better term, cheat the system, where he wasn't going to be a guy that didn't go to every single OTA, didn't put every single thing he had in, even though he probably could show up, for training camp a few weeks and still be a really good role player, good dominant player for us, and he was a guy, he was either going to be all in or not. And, but yeah, when I took the job, I was pretty well aware that,
well, everybody made a big thing about it, and rightfully so, but I kind of wonder how much of an adjustment it was for the other guys. Like, now all of a sudden, hey, you're not going to be getting singles all the time. The slide's not going to be as predictable. And when you got young guys now that are making names for themselves, you're going to be getting some chip,
100%.
So it's kind of it feels like it's never settled. It's always changing year to year. Who's going to get the slide, who's going to get the attention. And in a young player's development, I'm sure you guys are going to get a lot of attention next year, right?
100%.
Like, it's not a secret anymore. Jared Verse is not a secret. Fiske is not a secret. I think Turner's awesome and young, but how do you prepare them for all the attention they're going to get next year? And specifically the edges getting chip help all the time. I'm sure it happened late in the season a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get them? And maybe it's the same question as how do you coordinate your games, but how do you get them out of those chip looks and prepare guys to get that attention?
No doubt. In talking about Aaron Donald, I think and I think he's the best defensive player of all time. And we probably even underestimated just how different it was without him. I mean, we were, whatever it was, 7 years, with him. And just like you're saying, exactly where the turn's going every time. And guess what? If they're not turning to him, we know he's going to wreck the game. And we're just going to put him away from where we think they're turning it. And that was it. It was as simple as that. You can line them up and dictate the turn every single time to go into where you're really studying protections and trying to find out the rules and trying to find out exactly where it is. And then you now to the point where we have some guys that, have those expectations where, oh shit, now they got to account for an edge guy and see. And I think that's the point is, when you talk about dealing with chips, I think the number one thing for those guys is selling it to Verse and to BY and those guys. Hey, when they're chipping, guess what that usually means? That usually means the quarterback's holding on to the ball longer. That usually means routes are going faster, farther down the field. So there are ways to circumvent those guys, and we do studies. And I think that's the biggest thing every week. And I think that's the biggest thing from Verse coming from Florida State or coming from college into the pro game is we're studying every week. What do those chip looks come from? Is it always from a Y off position? Is it always from, from a nub side tight end, and now you're anticipating the looks. And obviously you can get to certain things. If you're in a 4-man rush, or certain things that you can get to kind of alleviate that. And if there's nothing that you can get to now, how am I going to rush this chip in order to create space for the other guys, in order for those guys to win, because the quarterback is holding onto the ball a little bit longer.
No question.
But not having Aaron Donald, I mean, the whole playbook's open the whole game for those guys. When you talk to a Matt LaFleur, he's like, oh shit, I had my, as soon as Aaron Donald went out of the game, I'm going to all these long developing play actions.
Yeah, you're taking shots.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys used to know when he took a breather, here comes the shot.
No doubt. Where we start out the season, it wasn't like that. Obviously, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a little bit different.
No question. Yeah. But I thought they did a great job, and I just kind of, I wonder if you could speak to, from the outside looking at it, I think most people know what Jared Verse is about by the end of the year. I mean, just fantastic power, motor, plays with a nasty streak. You could see that. I mean, and I think Fiske is I don't think people gave him enough credit in general, because maybe Jared overshadowed him because edge rushers get all the love. But just a really smart player, wise beyond his years, runs games well. What is it about these two guys that actually makes them go from looking from the inside that people on the outside might not know?
They love football.
Yeah.
What's so interesting about those two is they're actually very different personality-wise off the field. Now they're close and they're good friends and everything, but they're going to get to the point where they can play the best they can, but they're going to get there in different ways. Yeah. Fiske is absolutely a football junkie. I was in the weight room. I walked in there. I had something to do with my kids, so I came in early to just kind of get a workout in. And he's in there at 5:45 a.m.
Jeez.
he halfway through his workout, and I'm like, he's got the full day,
Yeah.
and so he is just nonstop football all the time. He's got a little thing where he's doing some rehab right now, but he's just kind of always here. Where Verse is always kind of be all over the place. He wants to be in. You're going to hear him. You're going to hear him talking shit to the trainers, to the equipment guys. You're going to hear him when you walk out on the practice field. Just like you saw, I'm sure, before the Eagles game. He just loves all that stuff, and that's the way he's going to go about it. But as soon as the whistle blows, I mean, those two guys were probably the funnest guys I've ever evaluated watching Florida State's defense. It made me think, shit, they should have got into the playoff,
Right.
watching with, no matter who their quarterback was, when you watch those two play, because how hard they play, how much they set the tone. And that's exactly what we wanted, knowing when we lost Aaron Donald, we thought Jared Verse could be that, Draymond Green type guy where, he's talking shit. He's got an attitude. He's going to be right on that line where, did he cross that line and get locked into one-on-one battles a couple of times last year? Yeah. And we had to kind of reel him back in, and we kind of knew that. And we love that about him, where Fiske is going to be quieter. He's going to be more steady. But when the ball snapped, those guys are going balls to the wall. We love their style of play, and they're great examples for our defense.
Take me inside the pregame conversation with Verse when he does decide, hey, I'm going to go to the link and I'm going to poke the bear. Are y'all looking at him like, hey, you got it, man? Or is it like, hey, easy, young fella?
Yeah. It's like you want to, because you want that aggressiveness. So it's like, but you can't just lose your mind. So like,
Right.
I think it happened in the first Eagles game.
Yeah.
He, I think Mailata, kind of got to it, and he just wanted to go run him over, and it turned into a one-on-one battle, and it's that controlled aggression that you're always trying to, preach to him, but you don't want to lose it too. So as you know better than me, it's just that fine line. And we want him talking shit. We want him being himself, but at the same time, and he's always doing stuff to try to help. It's all comes in good. He wants to make plays so he can help the defense, but at the same time, playing within the scheme of the defense, I think, his position coach, Joe Caniglio, does an unbelievable job of, and he's very, very smart. So he understands what defenses he can take a chance in, when his playoffs are. And, once he started learning that, I think that calmed down. He started playing within the scheme of the defense, and he's just been a stud.
Yeah, I kind of love having a guy like that because you walk into a situation like that, maybe people are nervous coming into Philly, whatever it is, and having a guy that kind of throws the first stone, so to speak, it's like a burn the ships moment for everybody.
No doubt.
It's like, hey, well, now we got to go fight him, and I think that can be really good. And so I just love watching the edge that he brought to the defense and just all those guys. I mean, like going back to, I thought, which was probably the game where it was like, oh man, these guys are going to be a problem for the next 10 years. Maybe the second Vikings game. I mean, it was evident to me that these guys were real good, but I felt like the dam broke in that second Vikings game in the playoffs. And I'm wondering, going into a game like that, when you smell blood in the week leading up to the game and you're like, it's going to be a good day. Was it a day like that? Or was it like after the first quarter, you realize they can't block us? And how sweet a feeling is that for a coordinator when they can't block your four?
Yeah, I mean, the front controls, really on both sides of the ball. If your front is humming and your front is rolling, that controls everything. It makes everybody else play better. I think one of the best thing, Aubrey Pleasant, our DB's coach, used to always say, hey, who's our best corner? Our best corner is Aaron Donald. Who's our best corner? Our best DB is Jared Verse and Fiske. And when those guys are rolling, and that week was interesting, obviously, because that was the week of the fires.
Yeah.
So we were kind of all over getting displaced, and we had a great Friday practice. Right, it was on Saturday, but you know what I mean. Whatever Friday in our heads.
I'm the same way.
At Arizona, and you felt a good bounce in the step. I think the guys, understood and the plan, and with our guys, they're really smart and they love to know why. And I think when you tell them the why behind why we're doing certain things and what we need to get to. And they understand, they just go play balls to the wall, and they looked fresh and played hard. And it was a fun night.
That's so important to be able to give them the why. I mean, seriously, because as a player, we used to ask a ton of questions, and sometimes it'd be like, hey, just do it. And we're not doing it to try to get out of it. We want to understand so we can do the job better.
No doubt.
You know what I'm saying?
No doubt. And I think it's so important from a big picture perspective. Like that's why I love to meet with the unit, and it's like, yeah, some things might not always apply, but like as long as it's like you're not wasting their time, you keep it short. It's like 10, 15 minutes, and there's just more ownership in the plan. And I think that's what you kind of get full buy-in from that. And we've brought in guys that everybody we have on our defense is smart, above the line smart. Like you can talk to them almost like you talk to a coach, where and guys like that want to know the why. They don't want to just be told what to do and hey, I'm going to go do that. And that's what's fun, is because then you get feedback, and then oh shit, you might have a good idea on a Thursday practice, like hey, why don't we do it like that? And that's what it started getting to, all the dialogue. It was like Mike Hoyt. I'd walk into my office and I'd have all these little drawings of games and stunts. It was Mike Hoyt would be in here kind of drawing all this stuff up. And, he's one of my favorites. Obviously, he's going to do an awesome job at Buffalo. But,
Yeah, they're going to love him. He does a lot of good work all over the field. So it helps to have a guy like that. And I just wonder, was it helpful to have veterans in the secondary? Like, was that intentional when you had a young group to bring in guys? Like bring Darius Williams back. I thought Cam Curl was a tremendous value. Like bringing those guys in and knowing they're a little bit older, was there any intent to that, knowing you have a younger front?
There definitely was. I think Les and Sean and the whole front office really did an unbelievable job of kind of like idealing, like, all right, if we want to rebuild the front for the draft, let's get some veteran guys that can play calm in the back end. And getting a Darius Williams back, a Kilo, coming mid-season with his experience, he's like our Zen master in that room, where he's just a great communicator. He plays calm. He's a great mentor to a lot of those guys. To Kobe Durant, you just see him taking steps and making progress. And Quentin Lake's always been a guy that, he was really his first year as a true full-time starter, but he feels like a vet. And having him and Cam Curl back there, and Cam Curl's really a guy like I think of like Verse, where he's more of like a silent assassin, where you talk about play style, you talk about hitting blocks, you talk about tackling the ball. He's everything you want in the back end. So it was a very, it was nice having a veteran group back there where, we want to be a defense where you play multiple things, and, but you can only do what you guys can execute. And those guys give us the ability to kind of do what we need to do, what we think is best to stop the opposing offense.
No question. You talk about the games where it looked easy for you guys, and then, one of the most fun games to watch last year was probably y'all playing the Bills. And I know for a D coordinator, it's not as fun. And, Josh and those guys did that to a lot of people this year because they were so damn explosive. What do you do when you walk out of a game like that and, you get a win, but you're like, hey guys, I got to coach you like we lost this game. Is that how
no doubt. Well, we were playing the Niners on the short week the next week, so
you got to move on.
I was like, I'm moving on. We're not even watching the
burn film. The tapes. Did you say burn the tapes?
Yeah, but I learned from Wade Phillips, and he was the best at this. Where we played, I want to say it was our third game of the season, our first year in 2017, and we were 1-1. We were playing the Niners, and in the third game of the year, it was a Thursday night game. We ended up beating them 42-39. And it was just one of those crazy back and forth games. Just a shootout. And we walk in the locker room, we kind of sit down, and I'm just like, man. And Wade Phillips walks in, he goes, well, we kicked their ass, and he's all happy about the game. He's literally happy. You wouldn't know if we shut him out 10-0 or if we won 42-39. And he was the same way. We had that shootout versus the Chiefs, that legendary
Chiefs 54-51.
54-51.
And then the Vikings.
Wade was the same
crazy shootout.
That got us, I think, 10-1 or 11-1 or something on the season. And he came in, he's like, that's 10. I remember you would never know how much you won. And as you know, it is so hard to win a game in this league. It is so hard. You put so much in. You only have guaranteed 17 of them a year. To win one game, it's so hard. So, if you could find it, and even when you win, just like you said, you're always going to find a lot of things wrong and coach them hard and all things like that. But to enjoy the experience in the locker room with the coaches, with the guys, with your family, whoever's in town, that evening, I think that's why you do it. And to say, I didn't feel a little weird after that game, given 44-42, I can't say like, as a first year coordinator in the back of my head, but I definitely want to get, winning's the number one thing.
Totally.
And, we did what we had to do to win that game.
No question. I like the coach that just told us the truth, no matter we won or lost. Didn't have to, and so there's always going to be things to work on, but it is nice when you got a short week after a game like that, because you could just kind of like, hey, we have to move on. We'll come back to this later. But the Super Bowls, man, 2018, 2021, obviously playing a low scoring one against the Patriots, and then you guys get your ring in 21. The first question I wanted to ask was timeout, 43 seconds to go. I think Piron stuffed for no gain. Everybody knows what happens next. What's going on the sideline before that play?
It was, I just remember Sean being on our side of the headset saying Aaron Donald's going to make a play. Aaron Donald's going to make a play. But I was coaching, we had Ernest Jones was a rookie linebacker. Yeah. And I think Taylor Rapp was playing the dime money, which was our, other linebacker in that position. And we called, just a man free defense. And I was making sure every single play was Ernest Jones, was out there in a line in the right spot. So, yeah. So I'm like, okay, he's got the back here. He's got the back here. He knows he's got him, he's showing. Yeah. And so that's all, like as a position coach, as you could imagine, that's kind of where my head was, where you're just so locked in on, that play and that execution. And, they had hit a big play because Raw wanted to pressure them and hey, let's go. Let's not let Burrow hold the ball. Well, he hits Chase in the, on a hitch route and he takes it 30 yards. And we're just like, okay, that plan's out right now, and then next thing you know, it's 3rd and 1, we get the stop. And the whole thing was like, all right, are my guys out there? Do they got the call? Are they executing it the right way? And here we go.
This crazy. The first Super Bowl feels like a relief. And I'm sure that moment felt like a relief where you're like, oh, he was in the right place. He had the back. Yeah. So,
no doubt. No, there was a play earlier in the game where he had called, Raheem had kind of ripped out of pressure that like we hadn't really called in the last couple of days. It was kind of in the game plan, but it wasn't like in the last few. And I'm like, I know Ernest is going to be kind of like he looks to the sideline. I kind of give him one of these like,
yeah,
hey, you're going,
y'all like,
and he kind of nods. I'm like, all right, we're good. And he gets a sack, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like,
that's awesome.
Like, this is the Super Bowl, and this is what's happening. But
so what'd you learn? Like, y'all are going to get back, right? Like, that's the plan, at some point. And whenever that is, if it's this year, if it's, 5 years down the line, like, your group is not going to have played in that game largely. I mean, it's like a different team, right? With turnover, the way the NFL is. What do you tell them about the experience, like soup to nuts, of being in the Super Bowl and like the keys, independent of an opponent? Like, what is that period about, and what are the keys?
Be ready to stand there forever before the from when you come out to when the damn kickoff finally happens. It feels like you're there for about 45 minutes. And really, it's the longest 2 weeks just in that whole preparation just to get to the game, because you do a week of your normal routine, normal whatever would be a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you kind of do it again, or you kind of revisit everything. But I think it's so hard to get there, and every team is just so different. And I don't think with those two teams there was anything necessarily special. It's just more of like, you do the work, you put in the work, and you start coming together as a team and clicking at the right time, and good things are going to happen. And it's not always who's the best team; it's who's playing the best at that time. And we were a lot different team in September last year than we were, by the time January hit. And that's really the goal, is kind of be playing your best football at the end.
Yeah, that's one of Belichick's favorite sayings. It's not who you play, it's when you play them.
No doubt.
And, that's you playing your best ball last year late. You played Philly again. The question I was going to ask you about the Philly game is, first off, had to be fun playing in the snow and all that, especially for team out west and everything. But I thought y'all hung so tough. Saquon is such a challenge. And this certainly isn't a question pointed at just y'all, because he did it to a lot of people like Josh. But like the explosives, right? Like, you're coming in that second game, you're like, we got to stop the explosives, right? Like, because in the first one, he ripped off a few big ones, and one of them in like 4-minute mode, which I guess is the point of what I'm asking, is like, it seems simple. Hey, throw the kitchen sink at him, load the box. but he's so unique in that he can turn a loaded box into an 80-yard touchdown.
No
So,
doubt.
you know, what makes him so challenging? Is it just that breakaway speed?
He is, when he gets through the line with any space, he's the hardest guy to get down since I've been in the league. I know that. And that's the biggest thing is he can make, a routine that would be a 12-yard run for a lot of guys. He turns it into 60 and 70. And what's so hard is, and actually, Bobby Wagner actually said, because they played him the next week, you do a good job on him for the most part, for a lot of the game. And, and they catch you and, just like, they have the best O-line in the league too. And they have for a while. And they're big and they do an awesome job. Jeff Stout, the offensive line coach, does an awesome job. And then they use Jalen Hurts and hit an explosive on us as well. They use him in the run game as a threat, and where he can kind of manage it and not put himself in harm's way. And it's a huge challenge because, the first game, you don't want to get where you're just so static and everything's keyed on Saquon, because then Jalen Hurts is just going to stand back there for, if you can't get a rush on him, he'll stand back there. He's so patient. He's so calm. Those tackles are so good. He'll stand back there forever and then start scrambling around. They have awesome skill guys. And then, like you said, then you want to get in some rush front or you want to get into some different things. And now they just hand off to Saquon and he can just take it to the house. So it's always the day. And that's the fun part about the NFL is the challenging aspect of like, all right, we thought, you think you have a good plan. And obviously we're going to go back to the drawing board. We get to go there again this year. So that'll be a fun one.
Well, I mean, I know y'all don't like hearing it, but coming away from that game, you're like, man, look at what that team did to Kansas City. You know, we went into Philly, and if Jalen Carter doesn't, I mean, he ran a coffee house, which we never see. It was like, that dude's incredible, by the way. But like, y'all are so damn close. And I feel like it speaks to the toughness of y'all's teams because, as you put it, like, we weren't the same team in September as we were in December. And every year it feels like y'all coach these guys up to be in a position to be relevant, whether it was the Detroit playoff game a couple years ago, which I thought was the most physical football game I've seen.
That was
was that a bloodbath or what?
Bloodbath. Even our first game of the year when we played them on the Sunday night, when you play Detroit, they're a physical, tough group, man.
But y'all have that same physicality now. So I was just saying, I see you, Coach. I see what you're doing there, and it's fun to watch. Here's the gotcha question. Reggie Scott, one of the best trainers in the league. He was my athletic trainer, and now he's still there in LA.
The best.
He asked me to ask you, are you the Rag-Bandit? And can you explain?
Oh, God. That is classic. That's there's somebody I don't know who it is. It's definitely not me. I don't use a rag in the shower, but one of the coaches or staff members is leaving a dirty Ross cloth in the showers, So me and Raheem, we started this when Raheem was here a couple of years ago. We were like, Raheem kept being like, who the hell is leaving this dirty washcloth? And then Raheem had a stakeout in the locker room. We were finding out when guys shower. We had a whole thing about it. And we thought we found him. And he's back, and we don't know who it is.
So is there clubhouse favorite? An odds-on favorite?
It's definitely, we thought it was Ron Gold, our running backs coach, is the clubhouse favorite. That was the one we thought last year. And, he says he's innocent. He says he's learned. So, I don't know. We got to
theories.
get in right now, do some research.
Coaching staff roster. So I'm gonna send Reggie my theories. I don't think it's you. I think you're exonerated. You mentioned Raheem Morris. This coaching tree is awesome, man. And maybe one day it's gonna be you as a head coach, and I think that'd be awesome. But like Raheem, now Liam Coen. You spent time with Liam. I just wanted to ask you what he's about and what fans in Duval can expect.
No doubt
from Liam Coen.
Liam's a stud, man. Liam has a great personality. He's going to be able to relate to all the players. He's a great coach, and I think you saw that with the swagger that the Bucs played with last year, and you saw like Baker kind of taking that next step. We didn't play them, but Jimmy Lake's here now. He said they were one of the best offenses that they played last year when he was in Atlanta last year, and he just did an unbelievable job. But he's going to relate to everybody. He's not going to have an issue relating to any of the players, and he's going to get the most. I believe he's going to get the most out of that offense and get the most out of Trevor Lawrence. So, I think he's ready. He's going to do an awesome job. He'll do it his own way. He's just like Sean would be or anybody else would be. He's going to use elements of what Sean would do and put it in his own way and put his own spin on it, just like he did in Tampa and just like he did with some great teams when he was the OC at Kentucky. So he's got a great personality, can relate to all the guys, and that's the biggest thing I would take away from him.
I thought they were a lot of fun to watch. I think he's going to be a hell of a coach. So, and then last one, I got to leave you with this because you, as a former player, as a longtime defensive coach, and now a coordinator, you get to watch a lot of the best players in the league on end zone tape. When we're watching common opponents and that sort of thing, and getting ready for the game, like who's probably your most favorite guy to watch defensively in the league?
Defense, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett are definitely, I would say, as far as you say, edge guys would be, two of the top guys. Zach Bond was a fun guy last year at inside backer. I've always liked watching Roquan. I mean, Fred Warner is probably, he's been the standard in the league. And then, it's like you hate to show Niners guys, but he's the best, as far as crossbody punch out and all that type of stuff. And some of the things he does as a hook zone defender is just absolutely incredible. So, he's a guy in our division. Obviously, we see him a ton, but he's, those are three guys I would say that are doing it at a top level. Kyle Hamilton.
Oh, Kyle.
Been a guy that's been like, just because they move him down to nickel some, and you're like, oh my gosh. I really enjoyed the Chargers last year. I thought Derwin James has always been a guy, and I thought Jesse Minter did an unbelievable job with those guys. And then Khalil Mack is still a freaking dude too.
How does he do it? You were with him. No, you weren't with him because I
wasn't with him. Giff was with him.
So Giff knows him.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing. Strength, and this is what you got to be excited about with Jared Verse. Strength ages well.
Yeah.
With rushers, and I think that's like Khalil Mack's the poster child for that. Like he's always going to be strong.
He's always going to be strong. He plays with such like a body lean. Like, and he's one of those guys where like he's so strong and so powerful. And he's one of those guys, he doesn't even look like he's really trying, but he is, he's going 100%, and he's just so calm in his movements and everything. And he's had an incredible career, and, he's like Aaron Donald. He's not even close to being done. He could play for however many more years he wanted to,
Yeah. I think he's got that ankle flexion, coach. I think that's what it is, because I agree with you. He's always got that lean. It's hard to put your finger on it, but he's always under control. And he's always got good pad level. And then the other guys you mentioned, Hamilton's stride is like nobody's in the league, the way he covers ground. And Fred, I know it pains you to say, but that would be my answer, would be Fred Warner. I've just enjoyed watching him play so much. So you talk about a guy that's like, hey, one gap, he's got four of them.
Yeah, no doubt.
And he's got the, he could probably play Tampa 2 and play the deep third. And
oh my gosh, his overlap as a hook player where he's supposed to be relating to 3, but he's playing visual off the quarterback. I mean, he's about as good. But he also knows like route concepts and when a number 3 goes out, how does that affect me, and how do I change my drop, and the amount of depth he gets on some of these like play action concepts and stuff. Yeah, he's incrable to watch.
It's not fair.
They've done an unbelievable job.
I'd like to run around being Fred Warner for a day. That'd feel pretty fucking cool. So
no doubt. I've always that's always been my dream. I was growing up, I was a Zach Thomas guy. He was playing at the Dolphins when I was in high school. So you can imagine that's like my like Zach Thomas, Jason Taylor, but Zach Thomas was like my idol. Like, and he used to come random. Like he loved football, so he would like come to high school games. He came to like a couple of our games.
Oh, I thought his Hall of Fame speech was great. I'm going to pull up some of your tape. I think most people are looking at they're trying to find Sean McVay's tape, but I think your tape's probably better, even though he's the Gatorade State Player of the Year in Georgia.
God, no, no, definitely not. He was a way better player than me in high school. I was strictly a linebacker. I was at St. Thomas. We don't go both ways,
Okay.
So I was just a 4-3 linebacker,
That's good. Well, I can't wait to watch you guys play this year, man. Congrats on all the success. It's been a lot of fun, and us we got an old DLine group chat, Rams DLine group chat, William Hayes, Robert Quinn, all those guys. It's probably 10 deep, and we're always talking about your defense. So keep it up, and thanks for coming on the show.
That's awesome. Great meeting you, and I appreciate you having me on.
Good to meet you, Coach.